Welcome to Your Gray Matters, the podcast that unveils the miracles already amongst us. Here, we believe that the human mind cannot be defeated. Tune in to discover the fascinating people with extraordinary stories, innovative products, and groundbreaking services. With your host, Neil Silvert, who's earned his gray hair and still has use of his gray matter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil from the Your Gray Matters podcast. Welcome back. We're glad to have you. And we used to say, and I'm going to say it again today, whether you have gray hair or no hair or red hair, but come on, we know what's under that hair. This podcast is for you. And today we're looking at a serious topic. It affects everybody, but seniors, please pay attention. If you have parents who have gray hair, no hair, or red hair, this is for you. We're going to take on the topic of online scams. And we're really lucky today because we have a great speaker. And he is my son, my co-producer, my new boss, my son, Jason. Jason, welcome to the Your Gray Matters podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here. What a topic we have today, online scams, which are becoming more and more prolific. I mean, we hear about them every day. We're going to talk about the scams that are starting now because of the global internet outage that just happened the other day, which was not a scam and it was not a cybersecurity breach. It was a company that controls 40% of the backbone of the internet made a boo-boo, and they upgraded their system, and the upgrade broke the system, and that caused planes to be grounded, and nobody who owned a Windows computer, not nobody, but if you owned a Windows computer, it was likely you weren't able to use it for a few hours because Microsoft was heavily integrated with that company. So that is to say, if you have a Windows computer and it didn't work, or even if it did, there's a likelihood you're going to get a call from somebody claiming to be Microsoft support who's going to want to help you get your computer back in tip-top shape. And that's a scam. Microsoft is not going to call you.
You know, it's incredible, Jason, because sometimes I think people think that criminals aren't intelligent or are ill-prepared, but these scammers are pros. I've been involved in some unfortunate scams over the years, not online, but in my investing world, the part that I've played in investing. And boy, you meet some rough, tough people who you think are your best friend, and they know what they're doing, and they look good, and they smell good, and they appear rich, and they're criminals. And it's hard to decipher.
And some of them are victims themselves, actually.
Yep.
We can talk about that when we move into our first type of scam, pig butchering. Have you heard of a pig butchering scam?
I have not, but for sure it does not sound kosher to me.
No, it does not. It comes from a Chinese saying that literally means fattening up the pig before slaughter, pig butchering. And that's what's happening to you as the victim. As you just said, they're people that you think are your friends at some point, right? They befriend you, you get to know them, maybe you get some information about them, they get some information about you. But when it's happening online, it's happening over a much longer period, and the damage can be much greater because they're specifically targeting older people, people who are maybe widowed or widowers, and who have money but won't for very long after engaging with these people. So the long and the short of it is, I'm going to befriend you, Dad. I'm going to gain your trust. If you're a widower, then I'm going to pose as a woman and it'll be a romantic thing. If you're not a widower, then I'm going to pose as a guy or whatever it ends up being. And I'm going to gain your trust over months or years. And you're going to start to give me money and probably a cryptocurrency scam. I'm going to convince you that I have a legitimate website that can give you a great return. And it's going to start out by you giving me $100. And then you're going to give me 500 and 1,000 because I'm going to show you the great returns. And then you're going to suddenly see that you've made $10,000 in profit. So you're going to want to go to withdraw that and then be met with a message that says you haven't met the minimum threshold. So if you want to withdraw your 10 grand, you got to put 5 more in because you need a minimum threshold of 15,000 to be able to withdraw. And then you put your 5 grand more in, and of course that first 10 never existed. So now you're just another 5 out.
So they're building trust. They're building a relationship. Could be in 2 minutes, but it could be over years, as you said. They're giving you all the emotional feeling that you're on the right track. You're scoring big. And if I'm going to get 10 grand, I don't mind to throw in another 5 because this is going to go crazy.
Exactly. At some point, your fallacy of sunk costs come in, and you go, well, crap, I'm already 15, 20, 30, 40, $100,000 in. So this better not be a scam. And I'm embarrassed to tell anybody if it's a scam. So I'm just going to keep putting my money into it, hoping it works out.
Yeah, just horrific, just horrific. But again, these people are trained. They know what they're doing. And we'll get more into protecting ourselves. But I guess if you even get the smallest inkling that you should hang up the phone or cut off the computer, you should.
So there's a few tips that we'll go over. But the rule is nobody is giving you free money. Anybody who's offering 100% returns in a year or 12% returns in a year, they're not going to offer that because it's not attractive enough. But we all know that legitimate investments take time, right? You're not going to get 100% in a year, and you probably aren't going to get 12% in a year. That's going to be over a few years. Interestingly, some of these people perpetrating the pig butchering scams are victims themselves. So a lot of these pig butchering scams are done out of places like Malaysia and Indonesia, and they're run by hardcore Asian gangs. And so if I owe the Asian gang money because I got in with the wrong crowd, well, now I'm forced to work as a pig butchering fraudster. And I'll be forced to work there until I steal enough money to pay back my debt. So it's really a horrible situation all around in most cases.
Yeah, I can agree with that. So, Jason, I haven't told you, and I'm going to share with everyone. Last Monday, I got a call from a gentleman who I don't know, soft-spoken senior, naming names of people who I know and that I was referred from them.
Yeah.
And the first red flag went up when he said, I know that you're a seasoned investor, you know people, blah, 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 attempting to build a relationship. And I'm playing along now because I am experienced. Normally I would tell you, ladies and gentlemen, just hang up when he said, Neil, if you can invest $1,000 with me, within 14 days, you will get $38,000.
Right.
And I said to him, so how many $38,000 bills have you received, sir? If you could send me a way to look into your bank account to prove that, then I will help you. He said, well, let me get that for you. And he hung up.
Of course.
He came back 24 hours later and said, okay, I'll show you. And I said, no, you won't. And if you call me again, I will call the police. I know who you are now, and goodbye. I didn't know who he was, but I'm sure the contact person who he said I know I did not call, I just cut it off. But for most people, he was the best guy that you would have ever met because he was smart and polite and claimed to work for one of the big real estate companies. You got to be careful, but nobody makes $38,000 on $1,000 anytime, let alone 100 years investment. It's not happening.
And that's the free money that I was talking about earlier. Nobody's giving you free money. If you want free money, then join the group RRSP that your employer offers, right? That's about it, because they'll match. It's really difficult, right? Especially these days, everybody is feeling it, even if it's just groceries. Even if you are able to spend $1,000 a month on groceries, you probably would rather not have to do that. And so when somebody comes along and says, I'm going to change your life here with this money, I get it, right? Like, I used to work in the cryptocurrency and NFT field, and that's the Wild West. You have to be on your toes because everything you have to assume is a scam. You've got to assume everything is a scam. And that's why it's so difficult to actually be a legitimate actor in cryptocurrency, because you're starting from a disadvantage. Anybody who's smart, and why wouldn't you want to work with the smart people? But anybody who's smart is going to assume that you're starting from the perspective of a scam. And so it's just one of those things where I learned over the years that I worked there, I got like a spidey sense about what a scam is. And you pick up certain phrases and certain words. And, I got an email, it went to my junk mail, but I got an email yesterday from somebody who claimed that they had watched me through my webcam doing all sorts of inappropriate things. And if I didn't pay them a certain amount in cryptocurrency, they would expose me. Well, there's a few problems with that. I've got a Mac. If my webcam is on, I know. It's got a green light. That green light is built directly into the camera. So there's no way for somebody to bypass that. But the other thing is, I wasn't doing anything appropriate. I would probably remember if I was. So, it's one thing if I had been doing something inappropriate and my camera had been on and somebody sent me the mail. But the reality is, you may get that email. Lots of people may get that email and they go, oh crap, I better send this person $1,000 in Ethereum. Now I've got to figure out how to get Ethereum. Now I've got to figure out what Ethereum is. Oh, maybe I could they called me back and asked for Apple Store gift cards. That's way better. I know how to get an Apple Store gift card. So that's what I'll do, and I'll give it to them. And as much as nobody's giving you free money, nobody's looking at you through your computer. Like
Exactly.
Nobody's wasting their time. It's just not happening. So there's lots of these scams, and you've got to be vigilant, and you've got to put aside that instinct that says, oh, free money, yay, because that's a very attractive feeling.
What I'd like to do, Jason, is also remind everybody that if you go back to our podcast in the early days, episode 2, we did do a podcast on how to earn substantial amounts of money legitimately. You can look to that one. 8%, 8.5%, even up to 12% on your money. You can learn how to do that. Yes, it has all the risks. I'm not telling you to go and do that, but there is an amount that could be acceptable, but nobody's making $38,000 on $1,000 like overnight. You got to be vigilant. Just like you said, Jay, what are some of the other things that people should be looking for?
Absolutely.
Let's them out and build a wall of defense for our viewers today.
Absolutely. So another really common one, it's something I alluded to just a few minutes ago. Somebody is somehow getting money from you. Maybe they're extorting you, similarly to the email I got. Maybe they're calling you and saying, I'm calling from Revenue Canada or the CRA or the IRS or wherever you live, the tax authority wherever you live, and you owe us $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But if you go buy $2,000 worth of Apple gift cards or $2,000 worth of prepaid MasterCard or Visas, you just give us those numbers and we'll call it even. Well, I don't know about you, but I know that the government likes to get its money. So if you owe the government $50,000, supposedly, they're not settling for $2,000 worth of Apple gift cards, right? But like I said, nobody's doing that. When I worked for Apple, we were actually instructed, so Apple lowered the maximum amount that you were allowed to put on a gift card at one time in response to these scams. And we were trained that if somebody was on the phone while they were buying a gift card, we had to ask them to get off the phone and verify that it wasn't the person on the phone telling them to get that. Again, we're not the police, so if the person pushed back, what are we going to do, right? But we had to be really vigilant about that.
So what you're saying is that the supplier of these cards or these opportunities, they have a responsibility to be appropriate too, and to try and find out whether the person's being scammed or not. Maybe not a responsibility, but a responsible company is going to help people not get scammed.
Right. they don't have a legal obligation, but you want to be a good corporate citizen, right?
Correct.
Especially when it comes to a place like Apple, and you write what you know, and I know Apple. Um, Apple has a motto that is they need to leave the world better than they found it.
So let's build that wall of defense, like you said.
So a couple
Um,
other scams I want to cover just before we build that wall of defense, because they're all going to play into each
sure,
other.
let's do that.
So when you get a phone
Okay.
call from somebody saying, I need $15,000 worth of Apple gift cards or whatever it is, that person might sound like your grandson or your granddaughter. Or that person might say,
Yep.
I was just in a car accident, or I caused a car accident, and now I need you to send me $10,000 in cash because that's going to somehow solve the car accident that I solved. We've talked about AI on this podcast before. AI shouldn't be scary. It's not scary, but it can be used for scary things. And one of those things it can be used for is faking somebody's voice. There's hours of your voice, Dad, on the internet now. Anybody with a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
of technical know-how could take all the individual syllables, and you've probably said every syllable that exists in the English language. And because you said every syllable that exists in the English language, they can make you say anything.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
you've got to be vigilant, right? I got years ago a phone call from my late grandfather, Zeta Harris, and he was worried because supposedly I had just called him asking for money because of something that had just happened, and I can't remember what. And there's a few things that should be red flags about that. One of them being he and I didn't speak that often. So it would have been a rarity for me to call him out of the blue. So that should have been a red flag. And the other thing is, like, I probably wouldn't ask him for that money directly. If I was actually in need of money that I knew he had, I would probably go through my mom, right? So there are some things that you need to just be aware of and can't have a knee-jerk reaction, right? If I called you, or if somebody sounding like me called you dad and said, I'm in a bad spot, like I need you to wire me 15 grand because somebody's holding me at gunpoint or whatever, you would have a react like, that's my son. It sounds like my son. He's being held at gunpoint. I need to do what I need to do. But you need to just build in a pause. You just need to stop, take a deep breath, and ask some questions.
Years ago, Lynn and I heard a speaker who talked about the difference between reacting and responding. And it's like taking medicine. You don't want to have a reaction to your medicine.
Right.
You want to wait the time that's required, and you want the medicine in your body to respond to each other properly. And I think that that's what you're talking about when it's emotional and you're scared and oh my God, and it's probably like the grandparent scam.
That's right.
The thing is, they're counting on the ignorance of seniors where we're not such a dumb group of people. So go back to what we know as a community, which is, wait a minute, stop. Somewhere in my 70, 80 years, I've heard something like this before, not my grandson being kidnapped, but why don't I call my grandson and see if I can get him on the phone? Why don't I call his mom? Tell us more, Jason. What would be a good response?
So that's an excellent global rule to apply, not just for when you think it's your grandson or a relative, but if somebody's calling you and says, hi, I'm from Microsoft support. Hi, I'm from Toyota. Your warranty's up. Would you like to renew it? Well, it's not hard to find a customer service number for Microsoft. It's not hard to find a customer service number for Toyota. So if they're legitimately calling you, that person you're speaking to is not going to have a problem with you saying, I appreciate you calling me. I'd like to end this call now, and I'm going to call your customer service line myself. Don't ask them for a customer service number. It's a number you need to find yourself. You can't, because if they give you a number, that's the same ballgame, right? So that brings up another potential problem, which is if you Google Microsoft customer support, the way Google's set up, it's very likely somebody has bought an ad that's going to appear above the legitimate results, And that ad is going to be a scam that looks like a Microsoft number. So you need to not only find that number yourself, you need to verify the source, right? The easiest way to do that is Microsoft.com in the case of Microsoft, is Toyota.com in the case of Toyota. Big companies, it's easy to verify because nobody is going to be able to steal Toyota.com. Again, if somebody really, really wanted to, they could for about 2 hours before Toyota recovered it. But that's not the point. The point is they're going to start to tell you they're from a little company because they know it's harder to verify little companies. But again, if you haven't done business with that little company, why would you owe them money, right? Have you ever gotten an email that purports to be from Norton telling you that your antivirus has expired and you need to renew it?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Have you ever purchased Norton antivirus?
So I did once, but it was more than 10 years ago, so there's no way.
That's right. That's right. And have you ever gotten an email, the Nigerian Prince email? Or something similar to that?
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's, hi, I'm a Nigerian prince. I have all this money in trust, but for some reason I can't get it out of my trust. So now I need a random stranger in Canada to get it for me. Those emails tend to have lots of typos and grammatical errors. And that's on purpose. They don't want the smart people. Smart people are going to catch grammatical errors and typos as red flags. However, those willing to believe that they're going to get $100,000, or those who unfortunately don't notice things like grammatical errors or typos, those are the people they're targeting. So if something seems like a red flag to you, if something is phrased oddly, if it sounds like it was written by somebody who speaks English as a second language, and I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion, I only speak one language. I think it's amazing when people can speak 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you're getting an email from a legitimate company that operates in Canada, and it sounds like it was written with somebody who doesn't have a perfect grasp of English, that should be a red flag.
Yes, yes. Jason, you don't know this, I think, but in the late 70s, early 80s, I actually met with a man who I thought was an investment counselor. So we're not talking online, but met a guy, and the end result was I lost all my RSPs to him. It was a scam. I got caught. The RCMP was involved. They actually did find the guy.
Yeah.
And he was part of a really bad, scary group, but there's nothing that they could do. That's a guy just looking at you. And here's why I was at fault. And ladies and gentlemen, you're not at fault when you got caught in a scam. But you have a responsibility, again, to think. I just wanted the return. I just saw the big dollars.
Right.
But mistakes cause you to be smarter. Just respond. Don't react.
That's right. So a couple other quick things I want to touch on, and then we're going to talk about how you can protect yourself.
Okay.
It is very common that you'll get a phone call from a phone number that looks similar to yours. So my phone number, the 3-digit, not the area code, but the next 3 digits, that's what's called an exchange. So you have your area code, which is 3 digits, and then the next 3 digits is your exchange. With a very inexpensive tool and an hour of your time, you can set it up so that you can make your outgoing phone number match the exchange of the people you're targeting. And why does that work? Because you think it's coming from a local number. Similarly, if I really wanted to, I could send an email to anybody that looks like it came from your email. It would say that it came from your email address. And unless you know how to look for specific things, well, Neil's emailing me and he's saying something and it says it's from Neil. It's Neil's email address, so it must be legitimate. So that's where some common sense has to come in.
Yeah.
Neil is an acquaintance of yours, and then all of a sudden he sends you a very familiar email talking about money. Is that like Neil? Have you ever had that
Yeah.
kind of conversation with Neil before? And again, you can probably get Neil's number without having to Google it. So call him. Call him.
Yes. Call. That's the point.
That's right. That's right. Again, any legitimate company, anybody with a legitimate request is not going to get angry or upset or yell at you because you want to do your due diligence. As soon as somebody starts to get angry or upset or yells at you because of that, hang up. That's it.
Yeah.
Hang up,
Yeah.
call the RCMP, and we're going to talk about how you can do. Or call your local police, the non-emergency line. Although if you call 911, that's fine because it may be an emergency to you. You can email the RCMP. You can email your local police. If you're like me, you don't want to talk to anybody on the phone, so email them. There are things you can do, but unfortunately, most of it comes down to common sense. You have to let common sense and logic prevail instead of emotion, and that's that respond versus react thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jason, you mentioned the RCMP, you mentioned the police.
Yeah.
I think you told me that the RCMP actually is a guidebook for seniors.
They have a guidebook for seniors. They have something called the Fraud Squad. This is something that they deal with, unfortunately, on a very regular basis. So they have tools. We have tools. We're going to put the link in the description about the guidebook, the RCMP guidebook, but I'm just going to have a quick look at it so we all know what we're looking for. So amongst lots of things, the RCMP is responsible for fraud, right? Fraud is a federal crime. These scams are frauds. They're federal crimes. So the RCMP wants to make sure that they're keeping you safe because let's face it, if they can proactively keep you safe, it's better for them. As I said, we're going to post the link to this. It's called the Seniors Guidebook to Safety and Security, but I've read through it and it should be called the People's Guidebook to Safety and Security because we can all fall victim to a scam, right? Whether you're certainly when you're 10, when you're 15. Now, I'm not going to send a 10 or a 15-year-old. I might send a 15-year-old to read this, but the point is it can happen to anybody at any age, at any time, for any reason. You need to use your common sense. You need to stop and respond, not react. Proactive, not reactive.
Probably the biggest group on the internet right now using the internet constantly are seniors.
Absolutely.
We really do use the internet because a lot of us are retired and we have the time or we're looking for things. So people should not think that this attention to seniors is without design. It is with design because we're available.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this guide covers some physical safety things, some ways that you can keep yourself from physical threats, and then it goes into fraud and scam. A big one is COVID-19, right? Whether we're calling from Alberta Health Services, you've tested positive for COVID. Well, I don't remember taking a COVID test, and I don't remember ever having to pay for them, but this guy's saying I owe $500. I better pay him. I don't want the Alberta government on my back. Well, if you didn't take a COVID test and you're not feeling like you had COVID and you never paid the $500 for a COVID test before, why are you doing that now? And I know it sounds so simple, and I know to you and I, and probably to a lot of the people listening, they're thinking how would that ever happen to me? Why would I ever give $500 to somebody who told me I did something that I know I didn't do? But it happens. You have a bad day. You aren't thinking straight for whatever reason. It happens. People make mistakes, especially in the heat of the moment. We've all said things we regret in the heat of the moment. We've all reacted. This is the same thing. They prey on your emotions. They try to get you to react.
Jay, I want to thank you for this today. And I have to tell you something. Someone who you and I know very well, and she's 92, but I won't give her name.
Sure.
Told me the story 2 weeks ago that she got a call from Rogers.
Yeah.
And she's listening to the young girl on the phone. Please don't do this, but she did. She actually said to the young woman, she told me this in glee, young lady, you realize that you're in the midst of a scam. You're not even a scammer, but let me explain to you how you can make this scam work better. And that's what she presumed to do. We're not suggesting that you do that. Just hang up.
No, although admittedly, I engage with scammers, which I do not recommend to anybody.
No,
But
please don't.
I somebody brought forward on one of the social media sites what was to me obviously a scam, but I didn't know what the payoff was. I didn't know why or how it worked, but it was clearly a scam. So what did I do? I pestered the guy. Hey, I'm not going to turn you in. Hey, I'm not going to report you. I just really want to know why this scam worked. So, unless you're,
Okay, don't do that.
don't do that. But the point is, that guy was also offering something that was too good to be true. So you
Agreed.
take care of yourself simply, and I hate to say it because it's not a good way to live, but we have to. You can take care of yourself by being skeptical of everything. You have to be a skeptic.
Yeah. And if I could say one last thing, and I think we made the point, Jason, but if someone calls you with an investment and makes sense, every province, I'm sure every jurisdiction has a legitimate body that can tell you whether it's a real investment or a scam, because a lot of these investments have gone through an awful lot of due diligence. Somebody is overseeing them, like the Ontario Securities Commission does not look at every single investment, but they have a series of tests and requirements for an investment company, and you have to go through them. So you as the consumer can actually go on the OSC website and see what works, what isn't working. Same with mortgage investments. There are bodies to protect you. And if you don't know who they are and you want to find out and you feel that something's wrong, don't even be afraid to call your lawyer. Find out from a professional.
We've all heard if you see something, say something, right? Nobody is getting angry at you for verifying something. Nobody's getting angry at you for protecting yourself. As I said before, if they are, well, that's the game, right?
Tough. I thank you. We just want to encourage everybody, as we said, respond, don't react, even when you're scared out of your mind. Look at the documents and the items that we put in the description. They're worth reading. But when something doesn't feel right, it isn't. And if it's so amazingly glorious and I'm going to be rich tomorrow, I just got to send a guy all kinds of my hard-earned money, you need to have a big exclamation mark going off in your head. Just stop it, hang up, and move on.
I've had a chance to tell you about scams I've heard of. I've had a chance to tell you about scams that I think I helped thwart. I'd love to hear you, not you, Dad, although I'd love to hear you, but I'd love to hear you, the audience. Hit us up on some of the fancy new email addresses we have, hi@yourgraymatterspod.com, or tell us on Twitter, or leave a comment in the YouTube comments. What's a crazy scam you've heard of? I'm not asking you to air your dirty laundry. If you want to tell us about a time you were scammed, I commend you for your bravery, but tell us, what are some scams you've run into? What are some obvious scams you've run into? Did you get an email from a Nigerian prince? Did you get an email that turned out to be false, even though you thought it was from a real person? The more, just like mental health, the more we talk about these things and get them out in the open, the better off we all are. So leave that comment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I think we're going to see you next Monday
on the Your Gray Matters podcast. Have a good week. Thanks for watching. If you found it interesting and you liked it, give us a thumbs up. If you're ready to subscribe, click right here. And if you'd like to see another episode, click right here. Tell a friend. Send us a comment. Thanks a lot.